Okay, then good morning here from Ars Electronica from Linz. There are still 2 more days for the festival to go, and yesterday we had a great celebration for visionary pioneers of media art as well as for really super interesting young artists. And one of the great experiences was that actually there were quite many more women on stage of the award ceremony than boys and men. And I think this is something that Karin Ohlenschläger definitely would have liked very much, because she was probably not only one of the most influential curators in the European and in the very international scene of media art for so many years, but of course she was considering also the very early time that she started to work in this area. Of course, from the very beginning, also a woman that was fighting very strongly for female artists in media art, for their position, but not only for female media artists, but in particular, I think, for many of the young generation of media artists. When we read her biography, she started already in the 80s, not only to admire video art, media art, digital art, electronic art, and all these different areas, but she really started in 85 already to work professionally as a curator. And it would probably take more or less the whole time that we have reserved for this meeting to think about her, to think about her achievements, when I would start to read out all the important things that she has been doing. We will probably throughout this discussion or these talks anyway come through many of these points. I think a very important part, of course, was her time in Spain, in Madrid. I think this really interesting development of one of the first media art labs here in Europe, a project that was not only exciting because it was one of the first media art labs here in Europe, but also the way it was built up in a very collective, collaborative way. I think another very important step, of course, were what we probably have to call like her last years of work, when she worked for LABoral in Gijón. And I think this is like the period of time that we would like to cover a little bit by bringing together quite a lot of people now who have had in one or another way a very important encounter with her, a long-term relationship, people who have been inspired by her, people who have been supported by her. And I think just the situation that we had, that from the beginning we thought, well, maybe 2 or 3 people come together to talk about her, and now we have 2 rounds of people. This really shows in the probably best way the extremely influential role and position of Karin Ohlenschläger. It's really a pity that we don't have her anymore among us, not only because we all lost a very passionate fighter for media art and also for the social impact of media art and digital art, but I think many of us have also lost a friend, a person that was always supportive and gave us spirit, hope, energy, I think, in many different situations. The way how we thought we are doing this is, as I said, just bringing some people together and sharing memories. I mean, it's not a kind of event for Karin where we now kind of celebrate her wonderful work. As I said already, this would alone take a very long time. It's much more that it's not for Karin, I think it's for us. It's for our community also to use this opportunity to really deal also with the loss. And again, it's always both the loss of the human being, Karin Ohlenschläger, but also the loss of this very powerful and influential curator, producer, and as I said, fighter for media art. And we asked you to join us. Thank you very much. We asked you also to bring memories, maybe in terms of images, photos, but also stories, anecdotes. And I would like to start with Christa, who had, of course, also has herself such a long career in media art that, of course, you had many, and especially many early encounters with Karin.
Thank you, Gerfried. Is this on? Yes. Thank you. I'm very moved to be here and think about Karin. We had many encounters already in the very early 90s. I think that probably one of the first times we met was in 93 or 94 here at Ars Electronica, at one of our exhibitions. And Karin immediately was saying to us, I remember we were sitting in the Arc Hotel, I think back then, and Karin said, we have to bring your work to Spain. And I don't know what kind of positions he had back then yet, but we talked about at every of the Ars Electronicas how to make it happen. And if I recall correctly, it was in 1999, the Cyber Vision exhibition that she organized in Madrid. And I remember a very nice anecdote. Laurent and me were very stressed about the exhibition because it was not totally finished yet. And even like basically 5 minutes before the opening, they were still bringing in the walls of the exhibition. And we're like, wow, what's going on here? And Karin, relax, this is Spain. Don't worry, it will work. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So that was a funny anecdote. Later, we met again many times, of course, at Ars Electronica and other festivals. And I think another exhibition we did with her was in the Conde Duque, a really fantastic exhibition about A-Life. And I think Ars Electronica was also involved in this fantastic exhibition, really huge, with very wonderful lineup of people like Lynn Margulis was there and a lot of fantastic speakers. Then later she also invited us to LABoral when she was the head of the LABoral. So we did exhibitions there as well, also with Pau Welder recently. And not so long ago, we invited her for our Sankt Interface event, which is at the Kunstuniversität, University of Art and Design in Linz, where we have this really funky format that actually Enrique Tomas, who will speak later, invented. And it's a really wonderful student format where every year, at the end of the year, we are making this student-run event called Sankt Interface, and we invited Karin to give an online lecture. I think we see it here, and she talked about eco-visionaries, a really wonderfully prepared, fantastic lecture about how artists deal with ecology, and our students were really totally, amazed about the richness of experience that Karin was presenting to us. And the very last collaboration we had with her was our solo show, the Artwork as a Living System, which is a big retrospective that Karin arranged for us basically years ago already. And then I think, Gerfried, you know already the genesis of this retrospective very well. There was difficulties about the financing and so on, but Karin kept pushing and kept going. Also got Peter Weibel on board, now also the Landeskultur is on board and the IMAL is on board. So Karin was really always the mastermind behind and said, we have to keep going and we have to make this happen. And we had shown it already at the ZKM in Karlsruhe, which was fantastic. Karin could not come anymore for the opening. I think she was already quite sick. And now in Linz at the OK Center, the show opened, and just Lucia from IMAL just called me a few days before and told me, look, Karin is in a really bad shape. She might not, even make it until the opening. But we sent her images of the setup, and I think she still saw it. Mm-hmm. Her son was sending these images to her. And I was really amazed that even to the very end, Karin was concerned how the exhibition is going and how the book is coming along. So I really admired her dedication to when she did a project, she did it fully with total dedication and total also love and friendliness and generosity. And this is something I really admire with Karin. And of course, the Facebook message she also sent to us, I think this was like absolutely heartbreaking and at the same time extremely beautiful. So thank you, Karin.
Yeah. I think this is definitely one of the biggest parts of her wonderful character and life, is that she always devoted her possibilities to allow for others to flourish, to present, to grow their work. And also, of course, she was very generous in allowing space and supporting. She was, of course, always a very clear and strict critical mind. I mean, and the way she had to tell you that she doesn't agree with your point of view, or she thinks there is something that you missed when you tried to explain something. This was always something extremely wonderful, because she was always super polite, super elegant, but you knew exactly, okay, I have to rethink this again, and maybe then I can try again to present it to her. And I think this enabling situation and really providing platforms and places for others is one of these very important things. Ursula Damm, you also have a very long history of encounters with Karin.
Yes, that is true. I remember I first met her in 1999 or in 2000 in Cologne, where she was looking for young artists doing things with the digital. And then she invited me to the Cybervision 2 exhibition, and that was already very astonishing. And I have to say, perhaps the first time that the curator invited me before the exhibition, not only to look for the place, but to get in contact with the people who dealt with my topics, but in the city of Madrid. And I was working with tracking technology from large places, and she wished to get me in contact with people who were working on the traffic connections in Madrid. And the interesting thing was that the structures were so old-fashioned and still brought up in a time from Franco, that of course it was impossible to bring them together with what we did today, already for the structures which were not as uniform as they are today. But it was eye-opening how art fits into our everyday life. And that was what I felt that she wished to bring forward, that art is not something only for the beautiful places she provided to us, but also that it has to be entangled in everyday life, and that we have to discover it there. And I think that was something I really liked with her, and that we also experienced in many private conversations on art. So if I was writing something about an art or a new piece, I always was in contact with Karin to discuss it with her, because that was also very fruitful for me to see how she perceived it, and perhaps what I forget in explaining or what I forget in my conception, etc. And she was just an extremely open and also mind-opening person to me. And then I remember in Conde Duc, she brought us together with Lynn Margulis, what was quite influential also for me. And I remember when Lynn Margulis said, I don't care so much about the digital things. I think it's much more fruitful if you look into real nature or go into the field. And even that response was good. And I remember that, or I have seen in Berlin a conference where people spoke about Lynn Margulis as a discovery now, today, almost 20 years later. So she was really early digging out these topics and bringing them into art. And that was, in fact, something what I will really miss a lot. Beyond the fact that she was so passionate about not only the art, but also about us, the artists. And so she offered us a warmth and an atmosphere of friendship in which we could develop the work. And that was incredible.
And I think it's actually 20 years. It was like 2002 when this exhibition was in Conte Duque. I think it's really
2005, I think.
6?
No,
But
5.
she started in Conte Duque in 2000.
Before,
Before already. Okay, yeah. And that's And I think what you say is something that we witnessed very often, because she was quite often also serving as a jury member in the pre-Ars Electronica. And again, this kind of two sides of her. I mean, she could be fiercely critical, and if she saw that a project or a proposal was just weak or not finished, I mean, she had no mercy to clearly say it. But at the same time, she was, as I said, she understood herself as the advocate, the supporter of the artist. So even in the jury meeting, and when she recognized that other jury members don't really get the project, or she saw it's necessary to understand a little bit more of the background of the artist, she always jumped, so to say, from being the judge to being the advocate and the supporter of artists. And so I think after these two positions from artists, it's now a good opportunity to go to Gustavo Valera, who has, I don't know when you started to work with her, probably 100 years ago, because 2004 also.
I started in 2004. I wrote something because I don't want to get lost, because I can talk too much. So Karin is a person that I respected a lot. She gave me the opportunity to change my professional life in the exercise of the connection between art, technology, and science. She changed the lives of many people in Spain, and we will miss her.
And it was actually at that time at Conde Duque, when there was the Media Lab Madrid, right, Gustavo? Because this was also the time when we met, and when actually Karin invited us, Gerfried. We were just starting with Ars Electronica Export in 2004, and Karin was inviting us to come to the Conde Duque because at Arco, Austria was the guest country. And Karin immediately mentioned, we have to do something. So she came to Gerfried saying, let's do something. We have to bring media art to the Conde Duque, because there's a lot of that's going on at Arco, but we have to do a lot also in media art. We have to present what's actually going on, and we have to challenge not only Austrians' activity at Arco, but also present Austria at the Conde Duque and in the city of Madrid. And the exhibition at that time was called Transit, that we worked together, and where then we actually met. And there were two, really for me personally, very important things. One is to do with Arduino. So I also wanted to talk to you, because one of the first things that I learned in 2006 was Arduino via Karin Ohlenschläger. I can remember that Karin came to Gerfried and me and saying, you have to come here. I have to introduce you to a guy. At that time, David Cuarteles, who was sitting there and saying, he is doing something outstanding. This will change the world. You will understand this is something that is really, the world it's very, very important. So you immediately understand what's going on and which kind of impact Arduino will have on our in the future within the whole media art area and cosmos, let's say even. And she was the one who immediately also understood it, who immediately came to us and said, go to David, speak to him, but this is what he's doing is really, really great. And you have to bring it to the people, and we have to highlight it. It's also an exhibition. The exhibition was actually already done, so the exhibition was already curated. But we tried to bring in also David Cuarteles, and we gave him also the possibility to talk. And so this was one of the things that I'm extremely thankful to Karin, but it also tells a lot about her, because she had these sensors. So she really understood immediately what is out there, what is super important, and what also other people actually should know about, and also to share it. So the notion of sharing. And I can remember when she was very convinced about something, and then she was telling it, she always was pulling her the head a little bit into the back and say, and then you understood, okay, this is now important. You have to be careful now. And yeah, so this was the one thing, and the other thing, this is a very personal thing for me, is when we did this exhibition in 2006, it was the first time that, so we curated the exhibition, we had the idea together with Karin, but of course it's always a budget question. And so we were supposed to go to Madrid, and I came to Madrid and I prepared everything, and then there was one phone call. And this one phone call was coming from Gerfried, telling me, look, Manu, I cannot come. I cannot come now because I had to reschedule my flight. There's another big issue coming to Linz now, and I have to be at this reception. Very important thing. However, you have to do this alone. Everything fine, do it alone. I was like, what? Budget is I just I started at Ars Electronica in 2003, and I was like, no, you are the ones who are actually defending all the budgets. Say, okay, but I'm not prepared to it. No, do it. I even cannot talk longer, so just do it. So I was coming then to this meeting to Karin, and I was thinking, how would she react? I mean, Gerfried is not a come. It's only me speaking with her about the curation, speaking with her about budget. Who am I that I can actually negotiate this with her? And then she was, I had the feeling that she's supporting me in defending my budget. And I really had the feeling that she gave me an atmosphere that I actually had the possibility to explain why we need what and why we actually have to do, how we were planning to do it, and she supported all my thoughts. She supported everything that I calculated in the beginning, and I had even, I mean, she was also defending some other parts, but there was the situation that she was very, very supportive, and I did not feel, or I had not the feeling that she's just thinking about her own profit or about her own exhibition or about her own thoughts that she wanted to realize. No, I had the feeling that she's actually helping me in presenting my thoughts, and this was my the thing that I'm very thankful and very grateful and I think that she was really an outstanding person, helping young people that are just starting with something and pushing them and supporting them so that they can realize what they have in mind. So. Thank you.
Yeah. And Karin was also, of course, a very important and influential curator. I mean, we have been talking a lot now about these years of the early 2000s, and they were really, she worked a lot also with ZKM, with Peter Weibel. I mean, they knew each other from the really very early times in the 80s already. And there's this Banquette project, of course, metabolism and communication. I mean, I just looked up in the web, it was 2003, this ZKM exhibition. And I mean, it would be from the topic and the approach, something that's totally contemporary and appropriate also for our time. Sabine, you also worked a lot with her, and maybe also from this curatorial point of view, you have something.
Yeah, I met Karin in 2002 when she presented the project Banquette. I think it was a project dear to her heart that continued through all of her life. And there's now another book coming out in Spanish that will showcase all the iterations of Banquette. So she approached Peter Weibel with that project in 2002. And then I had the pleasure to become one of the co-curators with Peter Weibel, Luis Rico, and Karin to work on this project that is really looking at metabolism and the way how we digest information, how our society digests information, how ecology is formed by that. And for me, it was the start of was very dear to me. She was really one of my best friends. And then we brought this project from ZKM to Palau Verena in Barcelona, then to Conde Duque in Madrid. And it also started a collaboration on art and ecology, because it was Karin who approached me in 2007. Kind of, in a way, it felt that it naturally evolved from the Banquette project to then we co-curated a show together with Yvonne Volkert that was titled Ecomedia, a name that came from the artist Andrea Polli. And this also continued for me to today, actually, because at that time I was working at the Edith Ruth site for media art in Oldenburg, and we did an amazing show there that I remember dearly. And then 10 years later, the three of us got together and said, like, it's actually time to look at it again. And that was the already mentioned project, Eco Visionaries, that we then staged at HEC, House of Electronic Arts in Basel, in collaboration with several European partners, again looking at the utopian ways artists can help us to make change. And for me, it also continues today, and that's why it was very sad that Karin could not see this exhibition. We just opened a show titled Earthbound, in dialogue with nature, and for me that's a continuation of these years of engagement with art and ecology, and really very thankful for her. I remember the many discussions we had. It was mentioned by everybody on stage, her passion for media art, and it was really inspiring. I got to know a lot of theoreticians. We sent each other important texts to read and get the feedback from one another. And in the last couple of years, it was also wonderful to have her as a friend and to visit her several times in Asturias. And actually, yesterday evening at the award ceremony, I realized, also talking to some artists, that it was really due to her that I know the Spanish media art scene. Many people that she introduced me to years ago, and that I continue having conversations with, and it's a big loss for the art world and a big personal loss as well.
I started to work in Media Lab at Madrid. I was doing my PhD, it was in 2004 in telecommunications, and I was living far away from Madrid. So somebody from Karin's team decided to try to get somebody who knew about wireless telecommunications, because they wanted to create the Wi-Fi Madrid, no? Which is in Spanish, is Madrid Wi-Fi. No? So I went there because my experience was in Venezuela. We had one of the biggest Wi-Fi networks, and it was like 40 kilometers connections, and we have this really impressive development there. So that was my introduction into the Media Lab project, and I was expecting to go to a Media Lab, like Media Lab of MIT, no? So when I get into the lab, I say, I saw a bunch of people sitting there, like doing nothing. That was my sensation, no? And sometimes a ball paper was hitting somebody's head, and it was like, I went and I knocked on the door on Karin's, are you sure you want me? Said, do you think I can do something here? And she was, yes. We need somebody with the knowledge you have to create this Wi-Fi network, no? And I said, okay, so who can tell me something? I said, no, this is a wiki thing, and then you look at it and you read it, and then you can, so we need to improve this system. So after I read it, and it took me like 3 days to understand what they were doing, I knocked on the door again and I said, hey, Karin, this is so poetic, so it's impossible. So we cannot build up a proper Wi-Fi network in Madrid, so we don't have infrastructure. So this is only, an utopia, this is impossible. And she said, yes, that's what we want. We want an utopia, so work on that. And it was like, oh my God, this is like so many years after university I'm trying to, but at that moment I was looking for a reason to stay in Europe, because the situation in Venezuela, it was early, in 2003, 2004. But I wanted to try find a job and change my status. And then, of course, Media Lab Madrid was organizing many things, and the things that we're doing, they were organizing the production of these exhibitions. No? So at some point they called me and they said, hey, we have a list of things that we have to do, and can you do some things with this? And I said, oh, again, it's like, I'm not gonna last in this job because it's impossible, no? So I was putting the things together, and I discovered that every time they were doing an exhibition, they were renting the equipment. So I went again, knocked on the door, and I said, hey, Karin, you're spending all this money every time you do it. It's like, it's crazy. And she said, yeah, it's so difficult. I mean, because we only have budget for renting. And I said, oh, okay. So, okay, give me some days, and then I came back, and I said, okay, I talked to the guys, and we're going to be renting the equipment for 3 years for the same price that you pay for only once. Does it work? It can fit in this, no? This is the way that in Venezuela we can do this kind of stuff. And she said, I like you. and that was the moment when I became kind of a technical coordinator, because Media Lab didn't have that. And she gave me the opportunity to study, to get into this. And also, at some point, we were looking for technologies because we need to empower. So then I understood that we need to empower all the artists that were working with us, and they didn't know how to do it. And one of the main tools we discovered in those searches was the Arduino board. And not only the Arduino board, the educational boards. And then we started to work in the team to produce and to create this, the intensive use and the educational program to work with technology for creation. And it was because she's always pushing and giving the space to work with.
Yeah, she was always also a great manager. I mean, she knew how to deal with the politicians, but she also knew how to discover talent and give people really the chance to work together. And I think this is something that was not only very important for this period of time in Conde Duque and Media Lab Madrid, but also when she moved to LABoral, already in a time when LABoral was sometimes in kind of troubles because the politics didn't really understand this precious place and what they actually had achieved. And we have another round of people who want to share their memories of Karin, and we are going now to kind of jump into this period with LABoral, and thank you very much for these contributions. I'm sure she would have really enjoyed it to hear all your memories and to see what she has achieved in Spain, and I think you pointed out very well. She has been so super influential for Spanish media art, and I think we all basically really learned to know Spanish media art in detail via Karin Ohlenschläger. Yeah.
For everyone here, to thank you and Ars Electronica for setting that up. Thank you very much.
We are happy that you are joining us together. It's much easier to deal with these losses. Thank you, guys.
Vida Futura explora de una manera muy específica una de las líneas más interesantes del arte contemporáneo en los últimos 50 años, que es la relación arte-vida. Desde los años 60, las y los artistas han abordado la relación arte-vida desde perspectivas muy distintas. Por una parte, desde una perspectiva política, medioambiental, económica, social, cultural, siempre planteando la relación entre los distintos agentes y elementos que componen un sistema. Y esta evolución es interesante en tanto y cuanto podemos observar en la actualidad que la relación entre los distintos sistemas, el biológico, social, tecnológico y cultural, están totalmente interrelacionados, interdependientes. Todos y todas hemos experimentado en los últimos meses que una alteración del sistema biológico a escala microscópica puede alterar el sistema económico, político, social, sanitario. Independientemente de la situación que estamos viviendo en estos momentos, en los últimos años, las conexiones entre lo biológico, tecnológico, político, social y cultural se han ido articulando de una manera cada vez más compleja y las y los artistas han querido profundizar en esas relaciones a escala microscópica y a escala macro. En la exposición podemos ver 6 obras de reciente producción realizado por los distintos centros que conformamos la European Media Art Platform. Entre los 6 trabajos podemos distinguir aquellos que están abordando la relación arte-vida desde una escala microscópica. Por una parte tenemos el trabajo del colectivo Quimera Rosa, que explora desde 2016 una especie de work in progress la relación entre el mundo humano y el mundo vegetal, fronterizas entre ambas formas de vida desde una perspectiva filosófica, bioquímica y artística, trabajando con datos científicos reales, con situaciones y exploraciones experimentales de carácter performativo y con estructuras narrativas especulativas, siempre, digamos, entre realidad y ficción.
Okay, we are jumping through time now to her period in LABoral, which of course actually started long before she became the director. She was working for LABoral as a curator from a very early time on, and I think together with Karin, LABoral also became a very important gate to the much larger Spanish art world, including, of course, so many artists from Latin America. I think this was a very important role for LABoral and for Karin in all her work, not only to look at artists from the nation, the national state, Spain, but really this whole global importance and really being a portal for all these artists towards Europe and to so say our attention here in Europe, as we already said before. I think it's the best to start here with you, Lucia. You have been working with her in this project when she was guest curator, but in particular also when she was director.
Yes, I started, well, I met Karin when I was still at ARCO, at the Madrid International Contemporary Art Fair. And, but I didn't have a lot of knowledge about the person. I had a lot of knowledge about the professional, and I was like really, she was really someone that I admired. Then we had the opportunity of collaborating when we did Banquete. That was a huge thing at LABoral. I remember it was good times in terms of budget and in terms of support, political support, and it was a fantastic exhibition that she managed to also involve some local artists. That was a really great effort that she always did to to try to increase the critical mass around what we were trying to set up at LABoral. And even if she was just a guest curator, she did a great job at that. And then we had all this, the exhibition traveled to ZKM, which was also a way that allowed LABoral to position itself in the European and international scene. It was really a fantastic job that she did, aside from the contents that she started developing with a research project with Banquete, together with Luis Rico and many other collaborators. It was really, there was so much behind it that you could you could not only just see the exhibition, but everything else, all the work, all the research that she did around that. And she kept on doing that because at the time, I was talking to Luis Rico yesterday on the phone, and they were, this keeps on going, you know. This keeps on going because she was this type of person that she was not only passionate, but she had this incredible belief, you know. I was at LABoral for 15 years. At some points, I must admit that I lost some belief. But she arrived at the perfect moment for me. Not the perfect moment for her because it was a difficult time. But for me, I must say that personally and professionally, it was an amazing support because she had this belief, no? I used to tell her, but no, Karin, with ecovisionarios, no? I was like, but no, Karin, there are too many walls, we're not going to make it, we have to do this microfunding, it's never gonna happen. And she would go like, but what are you telling me? It is going to happen. And it did happen because she always said, there was a famous sentence as colleagues that she always said, which was, we already have the no, so there's nothing to lose. Let's just try it. So I said, okay, Karin, again, we have the no, but no, we have the no, but we're going there. We're going there, and we're going to knock on that door again. And she was, she would never lose the. And then on the other hand, it was a fantastic support also. She would make things happen, no? And then you would get so motivated because you would see that strength and that belief. And then on the other hand, when we had to fight to make people believe in those projects that we were going to make happen, she would always use another sentence that was, a ver si me va a salir la alemana. I'm going to bring my German, I'm going to bring in my German side, and they're going to know what it's all about, no? You were already saying before that, she had that, she could be like really gentle, but she could be really, and I even loved her when she was like that. And because, it was just amazing. And after all the period at LABoral, we kept on working together thanks to that belief again. No, we're going to make this retrospective happen by Christelle Laurent. And I mean, it happened, and in the end, we entered in the collaboration with Imal. She was curating our show at our space in Brussels, and she's curating our show in Brussels because, I mean, what she has achieved, and then again, it's already all this passion for the archive, for documenting, all of this is still there. And still living. It's like the title of the exhibition, no? The artwork as a living system. She planted so many seeds around. There are so many things going on that she's been doing for so many years without the deserved recognition. But they're still there, and I have the sense that this is absolutely not ending, because that's what she taught me, no? This is going to happen, so it's happening. And she gave me so many lessons. Sorry if I'm taking too much time, but she gave me so many lessons. The last part of our professional relation was very personal also. And I have to thank her for so much that she taught me. I don't know.
I think that the way you pointed it out, this German and Spanish side of her, is a very good description of this powerful ability. She had to be super empathetic, but also it was always clear for her, it's a fight you have to fight, and you shouldn't give up. And I think that she appeared at LABoral was a very important point, even to keep LABoral alive in these very difficult times. So Patrizia, you have also been working with her quite a long time in LABoral, please.
Yeah, I met her in 2008 with the Banquete project, and she was the guest curator. At that time, LABoral was a very young team. We were a very young art center, and we met like this powerful woman, like really passionate about her work, very demanding, looking after every single detail in the gallery. And it was like the first time we had very deep contact with art, science, and technology, which is something that then it became a pillar for LABoral work. So we could not imagine that she would be our director 8 years after that. And then when I worked with her from 2016, I think it was the time when we met the more familiar Karin, right? Like the warm Karin. And I think when you work with someone for 5 years on a daily basis, it becomes like your expanded family. And I really want to, those are the memories I've been sharing with the rest of the team for the past 2 weeks. Like she would bring homemade bakery almost every week to share with us. And she was really keen on us to take some pieces home for our kids. So that's family, right? And she loved celebrating. She loved celebrating not only Christmas or birthdays, like she loved celebrating every single piece of good news that we have for this institution. There was always a bottle of cold champagne at the fridge for celebrations to come. And I mean, and then we understood why she was so keen on celebrating life. And I've heard a word for the past 2 weeks many, many times, which is light, when people are speaking about her, and I think she was a lightful person. And I think that's the memories I want to keep from Karin. I know we are in a professional context, but I think that the human side is crucial if you want to be a good professional. And I think she had that with us, with the team. And that's what I wanted to share when thinking about her.
Thank you very much, Enrique.
Yeah, I think Karin is a great example of how a person can influence so many people. Well, I was born in Madrid, and first I met her in 2004 when I was 23, and I was just finishing my studies in music and in engineering, and basically she gave me the opportunity of meeting you all. Probably I'm living here in Linz and working at the university as a researcher, probably also because of the influence of Karin. So, someone told me there is a media lab in Madrid, and then I went there, and then it's basically, I found a vivid community, conferences, exhibitions, so many things, and that basically shaped my vision about arts. And when you are in your early 20s, and then, you have a place like that, basically it's like, you're not gonna live anymore the arts in the old way, so to say. I remember, first met with you, Gerfried, was there in Media Lab. Basically, Karin came and said, hey, Enrique, Mr. Stoker. So also, Krista Sommerer also, first time meeting her there. Gustavo was a great supporter also of what I did later, Gustavo Valera. And how, we created a kind of community of people, really young people around Media Lab. And, now you see after these almost 20 years, what happened afterwards, the great things happening, and then you see that there's always a person behind this, or many people, but it's good to point, who was there, and actually who had the energies, efforts, and I don't know, the fights to make things possible. And I think Karin, in this sense, was really a big pillar for doing that. Well, that was one story, but then it continued with many stories afterwards in LABoral. Every time I went there for giving a workshop or a performance, she was always kind, really keen to say, hey, let's go and have lunch together. And she was always interested in talking to the artist, but also to the engineer and to the scientist. She's a big art curator, but I think she's also a great researcher in science and in engineering. She was always trying to get from, I don't know, in my case, information about engineering and science. So we were always, she had an exhibition or was planning an exhibition, and she was always asking me about particular things that maybe I could, give her some path or some idea or names, or she was all the time thinking in what she was planning. And at the same level at the art, I think at the level of the science. I remember conversations about Santiago Ramon y Cajal for this exhibition about artificial intelligence, and she was always, I think that really, as a researcher, I would say that she was a great personality as well. And finally, well, last periods of her life, we were meeting often in Madrid when I was going for holidays or for visiting the family, or I had a performance. And she was always looking at my Facebook when I was going to Madrid, and then automatically sending me a message. Hey, when are you coming? Because I want to talk to you about blah, 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 blah. And then, so we met in the last year probably 2-3 times. And I remember she was severely ill, but she was coming from some trip from New York, and I had only one afternoon, and she made it without sleeping for meeting me because she was preparing the archive of Media Lab Madrid. And then we have been working in different conversations to identify who was there, what happened, not at the official level of the to say exhibition, the artists, the big names, but also who she was influencing with the project. And myself, I was one of those people who she influenced so much, and I think that there is a long list of young artists in Spain that we have a big debt to her because she was just, the impulse for us in many senses.
I think you pointed out a very important aspect, and this is her very deep and serious knowledge of all these scientific developments in a field where art and science became such a buzzword. She was always extremely critical and really able to really look deep into the concepts. And when it was just some fake blah blah science thing, she was again German side. And I think with this she really contributed to sort of say raising the bar, raising the level of also for artists and young people, because they recognized you have to do it in a serious way. Then again, of course, it was this, I think, very important role to connect also to the big Spanish-speaking art world in Latin America. And of course, Jose Carlos, you can also tell us something.
Yeah. I mean, I was not at the time of LABoral, though I was connected very much with the initial stage of LABoral, but I met Karin in 2001, actually exactly 21 years ago, because it was during Ars Electronica. We were together for 3 weeks, very intense weeks. Even we went through the 9/11 together. And I mean, during the walks in exhibitions, because it was organized by the Goethe, and we went to Berlin, to Cologne, to Linz, I mean, walking around exhibitions, long travels from one city to the other in the bus. I remember that we were like-minded. I mean, because we were both interested. I came from a scientific background, but she was so not only interested, she was very rigorous, and I mean, she knew about topics that I didn't have people to talk with. So I remember those long talks which naturally cultivated a friendship. And that friendship evolved. I remember very well the time of the Media Lab, and that was very inspiring for me, because that helped us to, in a way, give us some ideas around the creation of what we did later, which was a Media Lab called Escuelab in Lima, which also created the first Fab Lab in Latin America. So, I mean, perhaps a more connected relation with the Latin American scene was when we were when she was leading the publication of a book that was a memory of the Vida Prize, and I was in charge of the section around Latin America. But I remember that because she was not only very interested in the scientific part and very rigorous, but also she was very much interested in the historical part. And I remember that she asked me about certain key milestones around the history of media art to incorporate them in the publication. So she was always very interested, and once more, she wanted always to expand the discussion, but very much her approach was interdisciplinary, but interdisciplinary connecting media art with science, and that's something that I think. I mean, there are not many people that are so interested, so rigorous, at the same time, so excited. So, I mean, it's going to be a big loss for our community. And, I think we all that met her, we all will remember her.
It is definitely a very big loss for many people who have been very close to her, and definitely for our community, for the further development of this understanding of the importance of art science, art technology collaborations. I think in particular now also her strong focus on the social impact and how this collaboration of art and science can contribute to society is something that we would definitely need her much more and much longer now. But I think what's also a very good, positive and inspiring point is to see that, I mean, this is something you say usually, you know, she lives on in the memory. But I think in this case we really can say she and her approach definitely lives on in all these people that she influenced. And how we have been sitting here in these 2 rounds, I think we all have been taking from her, we have been learning from her, and we see that so many young people, artists and curators, are going the same direction. And so thank you, Karin.